Hello everybody and welcome to Mother Rabbit's Kitchen. Today we are making one of my favorite things in the whole world, and that is bagels. But this time I'm making them for the very first time with freshly milled flour. You can see that I am pouring my hard red wheat. I am measuring out about 550 grams of that I'm going to mill in my Nutrimill, and I'm going to use that, of course, as the flour for my bagel recipe. Now, I grew up on Long Island, New York, with what I have always considered the best bagels in the whole world. And then I moved down to Florida when I was 23. I've been down here for almost 18 years. Don't do that math. So being away from New York bagels for that long, of course, it's enough to drive a Long Island girl crazy. I had to find a recipe for bagels of my own, and I even have it written down in my recipe book as best bagels ever, which it's been a long time since I had a New York bagel, but these taste exactly like New York bagels to me, if not better. I know I shouldn't say that, but they're just really, really good. And this time, what I'm doing is making it with fresh milled flour. And I was nervous when my husband and I decided to make the switch over to fresh milled flour. We looked at each other and said, the only recipe we think we will not be able to convert and still enjoy as much as we would have is bagels. And so we were nervous about it. We almost said, you know what, we're not even going to try. And then the more we got into the freshly milled flour gig, the more I realized, you know what, let's just give it a go and see what happens. So this is what I'm doing here. So as I'm mixing all the ingredients, I still don't know how these are going to come out. I'm still like, okay, maybe they'll be pretty good, but we're probably still going to miss all of that white flour for those big, fluffy, chewy bagels, and the kids aren't going to like them. And then at least we tried. But guys, I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert right now. They came out so amazingly. They were fluffy, chewy, delicious, just packed with flavor. There was almost really no difference. I could kind of feel a texture difference. You can just feel that really great texture of the whole grains, but it wasn't in a weird way. It wasn't grainy in a bad way. It just had depth in terms of the texture, and it had depth in terms of the flavor. So I just can't stress this enough. It is time for you to switch to freshly milled flour, because I have not yet found any single recipe that I can say, it doesn't really translate that well. It just makes everything better, and it makes everything nutritious. Remember how bagels used to be a thing where it's like, oh, don't eat too many of those because all that flour? Now it's like, eat too many of those because it's so nutritious. This whole wheat flour is one of the most nutrient-dense things you can eat. So eat your bagels, and you're going to want to make this recipe right now. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so that was a close one. I've done that so many times because the dough was sometimes when it's like propped up against one side of the bowl, it just gets heavy and tilts the bowl over because it's round, and it's a thing. So just be careful that you don't drop your bowl. Okay, so here I am taking out this dough and really stretching it out. I'm looking through the dough to see if I can see light on the other side. It's called the window pane test. Especially with bagels, you want to get a really good gluten development. You want that dough. See how I can just stretch that dough like crazy? It is so strong. That is what you need for a really good chewy bagel. So now I'm just gonna cover the bowl with plastic wrap. I didn't oil the bowl or anything like that. I just covered it, and I'm letting it sit and rest for 10 minutes while I clean my station and get ready to cut and form my bagels. What are you doing? Here we are about 10 minutes later. By the way, the rest times in this recipe are really forgiving. So if you have to put a kid to bed or take a shower or whatever you need to do, 10 minutes could be 15, 20, 30 minutes. It really doesn't matter. So I weighed my dough because I want to cut it into 6 evenly weighted pieces so the bagels are the same size. When I started making this recipe, I cut it into 8 bagels, and then I went down to 6 because we like our bagels big, and there are 6 of us, so it was just kind of perfect. And then here I realized I skipped recording the whole bagel forming process, which was a real bummer because it's kind of an important part. And so my husband had a really good idea. He said, why don't you just take one of the bagels out, reform it into a dough blob, and then form it into a bagel. And then everybody has the instruction. At first I was like, oh, that seems like counterproductive. And then I was like, actually, that is a really good idea. So here I am just taking my perfectly formed bagel, smushing it back into a ball. And so I can show you how simple it is to take your ball of dough and yeah, here I am. So this is what I would do if it was just like a ball of dough. I would just kind of round it out, tighten it up a little bit, and then I'm going to kind of stick my thumb through the ball of dough. And again, it's a really strong thing. It's not going to fall apart. It has a lot of tension in it. It's good stuff. So you just kind of stick your thumb through and just stretch and pull till it forms that really pretty bagel shape. We're not looking for perfection here. They might look a little bit imperfect, but once they bake up in the morning, they look absolutely perfect and beautiful. So no worries if your bagels aren't the prettiest thing you've ever seen at this point. And you want to put your formed bagels on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. And I usually just spray my parchment paper with a little bit of avocado oil spray. And then I do the same thing to the top of the bagels before I put the plastic wrap on. I let the bagels sit out at room temperature with the plastic wrap on for about 30 minutes. Again, very loose time there. Then I pop them in the fridge overnight. And that's why this recipe is so easy and convenient. You don't have to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning to make bagels on a Saturday. So here it is the next morning. And I simply just pop the bagels out. First thing I do when I come down, you can see the pretty sun coming through on my little hutch there. I love that. Oh, taking a quick break to drink my water. That is another thing that I'm doing now that I switched to freshly milled flour. And you should be doing this anyway, but I'm just not really good at drinking water in the morning. I usually just go straight for my hot tea, which that is the second thing that I drink, but I try to chug a big glass of water, especially now that I'm getting all of that amazing fiber from the whole grains. I won't go into too much detail about why fiber is so important, but I will say that we have seen amazing health benefits, if you know what I mean. So here I have just filled a shallow pan with some water, and I sprinkled in a good few pinches of some good salt, and then I put in 1 tablespoon of coconut sugar. You could also use brown sugar. And then once it comes to a full bubbling boil, I put in 2 bagels at a time. I used to do 3, but it would really overcrowd and the water would boil over. It still kind of does, but at least it's more minimal when I only do 2 at a time. And there's really no rush because this goes really quickly. So I let the first side boil for about 30 seconds. And again, times are just really easy here. I don't have to count. It's just like when they boil for a little bit, then I flip them and then another 30 seconds and I take them out. And you'll notice that I sprinkled some yellow stuff on the pan with the parchment paper, and that's just some simple cornmeal so that the bagels don't stick. And then if you're going to, I was going to say decorate, I don't know, sprinkle, if you're going to add some seasoning, I just use my everything bagel seasoning. And oh, here I'm going super fast, so I'll talk really fast. So you add some bagel seasoning as soon as possible after they come out of the water so that it sticks. And the first 2 I just did like a tiny little sprinkle for the kids, and then the second 2 are for me and Andrew, and we like a ton. And then the last 2 are for, I don't know, the 2 kids who didn't want it. I don't remember which 2. It's always Jaina and then, I don't know, maybe Camden. I think Andy wanted a little sprinkle this time. So those are boiled, and now they're going into 450-degree oven for about 13 minutes until they're nice and puffy and golden brown. Oh, that looks so beautiful inside.
See what?
Andy, be nice to him, bro.
How is it? Good? Say what you just said a minute ago.
These taste like real bagels.
They taste like real bagels? They are real bagels. Good. So they taste just as good? Just as good as...
it when the camera
Oh.
does all it forms on it.
Okay, I'll back up. So do they taste just as good as the white flour bagels? Is it good, Cam? Cam, is it good?